So, Naomi, the PR chick, thank you
Yes.
so much for joining me on This Woman Can this week. I'm delighted that you could join us. But before we kick off, the question I always ask every woman that comes on this podcast is tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today. How did you become the PR chick?
Well, Janice, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of This Woman Can. And that's an excellent question. I actually have done a couple of webinars where I start by saying that I wasn't always the PR chick because that's the reality. I never ever thought that I would be in the field of PR or doing personal branding or speaking engagements or writing books. I mean, that was definitely never a part of my plan. Actually, and I'll go as far as 13. You know, when I was at 13, I thought I wanted to be a flight attendant because that's what my mother was.
Okay.
And when she was a flight attendant in the late 70s, early 80s, it was such a glamorous industry, especially for our national airline at the time, Air Jamaica.
Yeah.
I mean, our flight attendants looked amazing. And then because there was no in-flight entertainment, I always used to hear about them doing their fashion shows for the flights to London, right? In first class as a part of the entertainment, which I mean, when we think about it now, maybe that wasn't such a great idea. But back then,
It is
it
what
was
it was.
entertainment.
Yes,
And,
yes.
it was something that you look forward to. And so at that age, I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to be a flight attendant. Until I actually started flying and realized that I didn't like flying at all. It made me sick. I threw up on like as the plane took off.
Oh.
I still have feelings of being claustrophobic on planes. I don't enjoy the flying experience. And so I knew very quickly at 13 that maybe this is not what I wanted to do.
Wow, wow, that has a way of mobilizing it.
Yes. And then the thing is, here in Jamaica, 13 is also around the age 13, 14 when you start choosing your subjects that you want to do for your exams that will then determine what you want to do in life, pretty
Yeah,
much. Which,
yeah,
when I think about it now, I think it's a really ridiculous age to be
yeah,
thinking about that because I was
yeah,
definitely still playing with Barbie dolls at 13,
yeah, yeah. I've always
not
had
thinking
that notion
about
myself.
career choices.
Yeah, it's always been my thought myself. It's the same in the UK. You choose what's going to be your life at the age of you probably
It's
haven't lived 10% of it, 20% of it yet.
it's a little crazy.
Yeah,
And I know, and I get it. I understand that there are some people that know exactly what they want to do. My father knew he wanted to be an artist at 7. He's still an artist today.
right.
That definitely was not me. And so I ended up choosing subjects that I thought at the time I was good at, or subjects that I enjoyed. Um, and then I passed these subjects, and now we have A levels.
Right.
Again, you have to choose again more subjects that will determine where you go to study for university or college. And still, even at that age, 16, I didn't
Mm.
know what I wanted to do. So once again, I chose subjects that I was good at. I like reading subjects. So literature, sociology, that's what I did. And economics. And then, okay, so now I've passed these exams. It's time to choose something you want to do for the rest of your life at 18. And I still didn't know. And so people started saying to me, you know what you should do? You should go into the hospitality industry. You have the personality for it.
Right.
And in Jamaica, tourism is our number one
Yeah.
industry. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I think I could do that. And then my best friend was also going to study tourism management. I was like, okay, well, I'll study hotel management. You study tourism management. We're both going to be hotel managers, and we're going to one day have our own hotel with our jet skis parked at the front. And that's going to be our life.
Goals.
So I studied hotel and tourism management for 4 years. I really, really loved the industry. But when I left university, and I did not graduate, so I do not have a degree to this day.
Okay.
And that's really because, again, I'm not good at mathematics. I'm not good at those types of subjects. And so I took those subjects over and over: statistics, mathematics, accounting, and I
Yeah.
kept on failing. And so I didn't end up graduating because I was short of those two subjects at the
Yeah.
time. And so I had the opportunity to jump straight into the hotel and tourism industry. And I was a part of a training manager program that's usually for 3 years. You work across different resorts, you get to experience everything. You don't really get a salary, you get paid gratuity, but they pay for all of your expenses. And at the end of the 3 years, you're guaranteed a role as a manager.
Right.
So it's a great opportunity for a 22-year-old coming straight out of school, you know, to within 3 years become a manager at this big establishment. However, because I'm from Kingston and our hotels mostly are on the North Coast, that meant I had to move to the North Coast.
Right.
And because I was a manager that lived on property, that means you're kind of always on call.
Yes.
So I started out first as a training manager in the sales department for a hotel within a chain of hotels. And because, and I say this, you know, because I definitely think my personality has a lot to do with where I am today, even in becoming the PR chief.
Right.
And I'm in Jamaica, what you'd refer to as someone that's enough. So we're into everything, right? We ask all the questions, we talk a lot, we're loud, you know, we engage, we interact. And so I was always checking in with other departments, seeing what everybody's doing, trying to see where I could help other people, even if it wasn't my space. And one of the general managers from another property that's under the chain of hotels interacted with me while I was there. And by the end of the week, he offered me a full-time job at his resort,
right,
which was within the chain of hotels. So now I'd be breaking that contract as a training manager and getting a real salary, getting a managerial position within 6 months, but I'd have to move to Negril, which is the furthest point of our island in Jamaica.
Yeah.
That's fine. And it was great. But I lived on property. And, you know, when my lecturers said that you're working in the hotel industry is really a 24-hour industry, it really became a 24-hour industry. And a couple things happened within my 2 years there. One, I got really, really sick. I ended up working a couple different times, working 14 days without a day off, because I had my groups from my territories in the US were here in Jamaica. And if your group's here, you have to be responsible for them. So I ended up getting bronchitis and tonsillitis at the same time.
Wow.
And I know it was just because my body just didn't get to rest.
Yeah.
And two, I also realized that many of the women that were in very senior positions, they didn't get to spend time with their families.
Yeah.
Because they were always at work. And I knew that I wanted to be a hotel manager, or I wanted to be at the top, a general manager. But I also wanted a family. I wanted a husband. I want children. I want to be able to still have a life. And by just serving in my industry, I realized that that's not, I didn't really see how they would both happen, because I would see our managers at work before me and still at their desk, even though I lived on property.
Right.
So I would always wonder, when do you see your family? You know, when do you see your kids? When do you spend time with your husband? Whatever it is. And I realized again very quickly that maybe this isn't the right industry for me, because it doesn't actually align with my personal goals.
Yes.
And so I've started to realize when I look back at my journey that I was always very quick to realize when something was not working.
Right.
And so I made a decision to come back to Kingston with no job, no degree, no plans. I went back to summer school to try and redo these subjects, which I still ended up passing one and failing one.
Right.
And luckily, I met this gentleman here in Jamaica that had started this entertainment cable station when we didn't really have cable in Jamaica yet.
Yeah.
And it was almost like the MTV of the Caribbean. It was called RETV, Reggae Entertainment Television.
Okay.
And they needed a marketing coordinator. So I was like, okay, I have no marketing experience, but I have a lot of sales experience and I have a great personality. And I went and had a meeting with him and his team, and I got the job. And I ended up working there for almost 5 years as the sales and marketing manager. And I learned a lot of what to do, what not to do in business, because it was a small organization. But what happened while I was there was, one, I had my son at 25, and that changed a lot for me as well.
Yeah.
But while I was there, a makeup artist that used to work with us was also doing a lot of work with some young entertainers. And he had said to me one day, Naomi, I'm working with this artist here in Jamaica. She needs a great publicist. I think you'd be perfect for the job. And I was just like, I'm not a publicist. I've written maybe a couple of press releases for this company, but that's pretty much it. He's like, no, I think you can do it. I think you should try it. And I'm the kind of person that I will try something.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to try. And I remember walking to the nearest bookshop because we didn't have Google yet.
Yeah.
So I walked to the nearest bookshop to buy all the books I could find about PR and being a publicist so that I could kind of fast track myself into this space. But what I realized during that journey was that because I worked in the media industry and entertainment specifically for so many years, I had built real relationships, not just with the artists and entertainers, but with the media houses, with the people behind the scenes, the decision makers, the people that decide what we actually see on TV, what we hear on the radio, what we read in print. And they also saw me as a credible source of information.
Right.
Plus, because of my love for writing topics or reading topics, I wrote really well.
Okay.
And so I started sending out these press releases and they started getting placed. And the more that happened, more entertainers started reaching out to me to become their publicist. So now my side hustle started as Garrick Communications, the publicist for these entertainers. But then when I got pregnant with my son, everything changed again because I realized very quickly that I didn't want to be in this entertainment space where I had to be going to all of these events and I had to be engaging with all of these entertainers at random hours throughout my day as well. I would want more stability. But again, I'm at that roadblock where I'm trying to figure out, okay, I don't want to work in entertainment. I don't want to work in the hotel industry, but that's where my experience is.
Right.
Luckily, a boutique hotel was opening in Kingston called the Spanish Court Hotel, and they needed a corporate communications manager. Guess who doesn't have corporate communications management skills? This one. However, I do have hospitality experience from working in the hotel industry.
Yeah.
And I now have media experience from working in a media house and working as a publicist. So I just brought all of that into my interview, dressed the part, and I got the job. And so I was now a corporate communications manager focusing on more the lifestyle side of PR. I worked there for 3 months and realized again very quickly that I still don't want to be in the hospitality industry. And not only do I not want to be in the hospitality industry, I don't want to work for anybody ever again.
Okay.
And so I made a decision to venture off really into entrepreneurship, not with the saved up money for the business that I hear about now throughout my journey that, you should save at least 6 months of your salary, or I had none of that. I was a single mother with a young 2-year-old, and I was like, I'm going to do this. All I had was my logo that my brother designed. I had gotten some white polo shirts from Old Navy and got my logo printed on them. And I had these black pants from Express. My car was falling apart, literally. We used to call it ground zero because you could feel everything, while you were driving. But I showed up, right? And I dressed for the part and I had a business and I was ready to go. And so, and I brought my reputation, which is really important. So our largest newspaper company here in Jamaica, the Gleaner, heard that I had gone off on my own. And again, because of relationships, the lifestyle editor reached out to me and asked if she could do a small feature about my transition and if we could do this at my office. Now, my office was me with my laptop and my BlackBerry and my camera because we didn't have iPhones yet. So I had my digital camera. But I spoke to the hotel that I just finished working at and asked them if we could do the shoot in their beautiful lobby. And again, because of relationships, they were like, of course, sure, no problem. That story ended up being the cover story for that print publication. And that's how I got my first retainer client.
Fabulous. What a great story.
And my company just turned 10 years old last year. And to date, we've never advertised our agency. It has been through referrals, recommendations, results, and of course, our reputation.
Yeah.
And so, you know, PR played a really big role in launching my own PR agency. And so that's the Garrick Communications story. But as an entrepreneur, you know, we have our highs and lows. It's a very bipolar type of experience. And so there were many times in my 10-year journey with my agency that I thought about going back to the corporate world and, you know, being a corporate communications manager or a PR manager for another company where I knew I had a set salary every month and I had all these benefits and everything. And I did apply for a couple jobs, never ever got them. God knows why. And so I had those experiences. And then I remember the end of 2016 was one of those years where I was really not sure what the heck I was really doing and if this is what I really wanted to do. I spent that Christmas in California with my family because my younger brother and my father live in California. And I remember January 1st, 2017, my younger brother made me watch a Tony Robbins documentary that's on Netflix. I'm Not Your Guru, right? And I also read Shonda Rhimes' book, The Year of Yes.
Saying yes.
Everybody needs to read that book or download the Audible because she does the narration in the Audible. So I have both, right? So sometimes when I just need to pick me up, I will re-listen to that book. And that changed everything for me, those two things. Because one, I was like, my brother and I were like, we must go to a Tony Robbins conference this year. And I was like, this year is going to be my year of yes. I'm going to say yes to all the things that scare me the most, like applying for fellowships and applying for entrepreneurship programs that I never thought I was worthy of because I didn't have a degree.
Right.
So I didn't realize that all this time that held me back a lot. I thought, not anybody else, but I thought that my agency could not pitch for or bid for specific projects or opportunities because I did not have something on paper that said I was qualified to do what I've been doing at that time for 6-7 years. So I was really holding back myself and the company. And that year I just did everything. So I started off by applying for this fellowship called Vital Voices. And it's a global fellowship based in the US, but it's for women entrepreneurs from around the world.
Right.
And for this fellowship, I mean, the application form alone was so intimidating that I started and stopped. And then 2 days before it was due, I got a prompt from them saying, hey, Naomi, we realize that you haven't completed your application. Please remember you only have 48 hours. And I kind of was like, there's no way I'm going to get into this program, but let me finish it anyway, just to say that because it's my year of yes and I need to complete things. And I applied for the fellowship and I was the only out of over, I think 700 applicants. They chose 49 women from around the world. And I was the only woman from the Caribbean that was selected into the program that year.
Wow.
Which included all expenses paid trip to Ireland for a week where we had our in-person training. And every week we had a live webinar session with different trainers in different industries and fields teaching us new things. So that was amazing for me because it showed me that I really was holding myself back and not even trying to do these things. Then I also applied for another program here in Jamaica called the Scotiabank Vision Achiever Program, where again, you apply, they get probably 200 applications, and then they select 25 entrepreneurs that they go through a whole 17-week accelerator program for entrepreneurs where you have a coach and trainer. And I did that. And again, I got in as one of the 25, even though I submitted my application after the closing date because I was just scared to press send. And I was like, you know what? I know I've missed a date, but let me just send it in anyway to feel like I submitted. But I know they're not going to call me. And they called me the next day to say that I was shortlisted.
Wow.
And then so I went to Tony Robbins conference. I walked on fire, which was a real thing, which again just reminded me that, you know, you have the power to change your mindset. You know, you literally have the power to control your mind. And so that, I mean, to this day, I still look back at the notes from that Tony Robbins conference because it was really empowering. And shape the rest of the year for me.
Right.
So as a part of, to get to the PR chick story, long story long, I ended up, our coach during the Vision Achiever program in one of our sessions said to us, we need to find a way to make nocturnal revenue when you're sleeping.
Yes.
And she gave a lot of examples, and she was just like, you know, like writing a book, because you put in the effort one time and then now you just reap the benefits after. So I decided I was going to write a book first about PR, you know, PR storytelling. But as I started it, I just didn't feel the motivation to write about PR. And literally one night, you know, they talk about things being downloaded into your brain. Literally one night, I woke up at about 3 o'clock in the morning. I remember the night before I had watched something and they were talking about, you know, using your experience to add value to others. And I woke up and I was like, I have to write about my journey, which was personal branding, because I didn't have the degree. I had all the other things that we forget about that actually adds value to who we are. And I just started thinking about what are some of the things that I have done, the steps that I have taken that have gotten me to this point, even without the degree. And that led to my workbook, A PR Chick's Guide, 8 Steps to Building Your Personal Brand, which I launched in March 2018. And to date, I've sold maybe about 2,000 copies.
Wow, well done.
And it just led to so many opportunities. It led to speaking engagements in Jamaica. Then it led to me doing my own workshops. Then it led to big corporate entities inviting me to host workshops for their teams. And then it ended up getting me in a contract with the Ministry of Education to do personal branding workshops for university students across the island. I ended up writing 2 more books that year on personal branding. And it then led to coaching. And I've also had the opportunity to speak at events in London and in the US. And this is all because of the workbook. And so now I'm a personal branding coach. And I'm doing what I really, really, really love, which is I believe this coaching role allows me to help individuals to see the greatness within themselves that sometimes they just can't see or they can't get past. So as a personal branding coach, what I really do is I help individuals to really get clarity on who they are and to understand what their unique value is, and then how they can communicate that to their ideal audience, whether on or offline. And the fulfillment that I get from that is so much greater than anything I've done as a PR consultant.
I know.
I'm helping individuals and not companies.
I know exactly the same feeling as a coach for women in leadership and helping them navigate that journey. So I totally agree with you about the level of fulfillment. Actually coming out of the corporate world, having spent all my life in the corporate world, now doing something that kind of plays to my strengths. And there's so much you told me there that I'm trying to remember all the things I wanted to ask you. So the couple of things that come to mind is, first of all, what really stands out for me is your resiliency. And I am all about resilience and how people underestimate the power of resiliency. And what qualities do you think for you make you so resilient? I hate to say bounce back ability. There's so many different ways you can say it, but people know resilience has been bouncing back, because everything you've told me there, you rebounded from a position of what people could see as maybe a weakness to one of strength. So what qualities make you so resilient, do you think, Naomi?
So for me, I really think it's about understanding what my driving force is.
Right.
So originally, I would tell people that my driving force was my son. That was really the thing that got me out of bed, that made me try new things, that made me know when to say no to something, that determined what events I went to, who I engaged with, what projects I undertook. And as he has gotten older, he's still a very big part of my driving force. But I would also tell people now that my driving force is to impact and inspire others. And I do that by sharing my journey and my experience, even through coaching. And so that is whenever I get to that point, because trust me, there are days like everybody else where I'm just like, what the hell am I doing? I'm actually in a crossroads right now, because I'm trying to decide after 10 years of having an agency, do I still want to do this? Right. Or do I want to go full out into personal branding, which is a thing that lights me up from the inside? This is what I love. Yeah. But I have created a strong brand here in Jamaica with Garrick Communications. And so it's just like, so I have to know. So actually this year I was like, this is my year of all in. And I'm going to use this year to go all in with both personal branding and Garrick Communications, and make a decision at the end of the year to see if what do I want to do. But it still goes back to, is what I'm doing going to impact and inspire? Yeah. Is what I'm doing going to help to change the quality of life for me and my child?
Yes.
So those are the things I think that, you know, really help me to, as you said, bounce back or be resilient. But and the last thing I'd say about that is, or I'd say two things. Mindset is everything. So I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of those motivational tapes in the mornings just to like get my brain going. In the morning, I do morning journaling just to get the clutter out of my head, because I'm also a creative naturally. And so my brain is just always thinking and visualizing things. And I will wake up with ideas, with problems, with everything on my head. And I read about morning journaling, not planning out my day, but just writing down all the things that's in my head to kind of clear it out and then start fresh. Yeah. So it's there and I can look back at it when I'm ready, but I need to get it out. Yeah. Yeah. And then I think having your circle of genius. So I have a lot of very supportive women in my circle, and I have different circles. Yes. So I have a group of women who we're all female entrepreneurs. So we have similar experiences in that space that my best friend that I've had since I was 11 would not understand. So I have that circle of genius there. And then I have another one that's my core group of friends that I've had since high school. We're still friends today. It's 11 of us, where most of us are celebrating our 40th birthday this year. But then I have another group and I have another group. So I have different groups of women that where we support each other, but for different things. Yes. Because that is super important. We can't do it alone. Yeah. And you know, I find that a lot of women are afraid to open up and share and connect.
Oh, yes. And I say
we're afraid, you know, afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah, they have what I call the me, myself, and I syndrome, in that nobody knows what's going on. I'm the only person who've experienced it. No one can ever share what I'm going through. No one will ever know. And it's always about that very much. Then, as you know, if you look to the person next to you and you say, look, I had this challenge, invariably they go, oh yeah, I faced that, or I know somebody did that.
Yep.
And that's what they did. We don't have to reinvent the wheel if we're talking to each other.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need someone to talk to, and you know, and you have, and a lot of people ask me about that, because as I said, I have different groups of people. So my circle of entrepreneurs, I may not talk to them about, you know, things I talk to my best friend, but I may talk to them even about, you know, how do you navigate relationships?
Yes.
As a female business owner that runs your own business, and you're used to running your house, and you're used to, you're the boss, you run everything.
Yeah.
How does that affect your intimate relationships? That's not something I can speak to with my BFF, because she doesn't understand it from that side.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's why it's important to, you know, seek out like-minded individuals as well, so you can support each other. So I'll have my colleagues in business that will just randomly call me, and they have their own close friends too, but their close friends just might not get it.
Yeah.
Because this particular situation applies to someone that runs a business.
Fabulous. And the other point you picked up there, I picked up, was when you're talking, was about transferable skills. And you are a great example of looking at transferable skills in order to pivot. And again, with the current climate, what's happening, all the changes, the upheaval, I suppose a lot of women are actually looking at what now, what next. Maybe I've lost my job, maybe I've been furloughed, maybe it's just 2020 is the year that I said, for goodness sake, I want to do something different now, I want to get out of this. What tips would you give to a woman looking to pivot using the skills she currently has?
Sure, and that's an awesome question. So I find that actually a lot of my clients that come to me for coaching are usually women that are between the ages of 45 and I would say 65. And those are the women that have been doing the same thing all their lives. And they're at this point where they realize that, what am I doing? This is not what I love to do. Is it too late for me to start over? And I'm just like, no, this is a time to get excited. And it's the same thing that I do say to people who have been made redundant or who have lost their jobs, that guess what? You just got another opportunity to actually do what you really want to do. And so for me, it starts with asking yourself the question, who are you? And a lot of times we don't take the time to actually do that introspection of self because we're just going. And what I think, even for me during this time of COVID, what COVID gave me was time.
Yes, very much.
I never had the time to do a lot of things that I'm doing and exploring now that I didn't even realize that I like to do. I just started selling cinnamon rolls every Friday from my kitchen when I never used to bake at all. But in COVID, I started baking and I realized that it was like a therapy for me. So I would be just baking banana breads and giving them to all my neighbors and all my friends. I'm like, you want a banana bread? I'm baking on Friday. Come pick up banana breads. My son said to me, Mom, you need to try these cinnamon rolls. So I'm like, all right, this is interesting because this involves yeast and stuff like that. I've never, baked like that, but they came out so well. I started making them again, just giving them to people. And then people were like, I would buy these from you. Why don't you sell them? So 2-3 weeks ago, I started a new business called PR Chick Bakes. And every Friday morning at 6:00, I bake cinnamon rolls and people pre-order them and then they pick them up on Fridays.
There you go.
And I love it. It's so fun. And you would never, I mean, I'd be like, no, I'm not baking. I'm not interested and I don't have the time. And so this is a great time to really figure out your why. What is it that you want to do? What are you passionate about? What are your core values? It's time to revisit your goals. What were some of your personal goals and the professional goals? A lot of times we put them as separate things, but your personal goals must align with the professional goals. And maybe we end up doing the professional goal thinking that it was aligned with the personal goal, but then we just got kind of caught up in the professional side and forgot about the personal side. So this is a good time for introspection to really figure out, what do you want to do? And whenever I talk to people that have lost a job or they've quit their job or they've been made redundant, I would then say to them, really, like, did you actually really like what you're doing? And most of the time it's a no. And then I'll start asking, what do you really love to do? What would you do if you weren't getting paid? You would do it anyway, even if you weren't getting paid to do it. What do you do that just like, what's the question that people ask you that you always have the answer? Like you just know this stuff. And it may be something not even related to your entire career path that you've had all this time, but it's something that you love. It could be just all the results scores from sporting events because that's your passion. And there's areas in that field that you could be getting paid for this thing that just comes so naturally to you. It's really about digging deep within yourself to see, what are the things that I really like? And then one of the exercises that I always tell people to do is to write down 5 words that you'd use to describe yourself. And then ask 10 other people to give you 5 words that they use to describe you. So it's like you're doing a check-in with others to see, what do people actually think about? What do you think is great about me? What do you think? What do you think I'm good at? Because sometimes we don't see these things. And that's why I said, as a coach, what I really love is that I help people to see the greatness within themselves. Because sometimes it's right there. We can't see it until someone points it out to us. So that's really it. It's really about just doing that introspection and figuring out, what is it that you love? What do you like? I actually do an exercise with my clients called a journey to the future, where I let them visualize what would their life look like over the next 15 years if they had all the resources, all the money, everything. What would that life look like? And then we actually do a session where now you are sharing your 15-year journey. It's almost like a reunion, coaching reunion. You're telling me what you've accomplished over the last 15 years. Yeah. And then you start from there. You're like, okay, if this is what I want my life to look like, what do I need to do over the next 15 years? What do I actually need to do? Do I need to go back to school? Do I need to do a course? Do I need to move to France and learn how to bake French pastry? What is it that I need to do that's going to get me closer to this thing? There's this amazing book called The One Thing by Garrick Communications. And that's what it's about. It's about helping you to focus on what is your one thing. Because if you're not doing your one thing, then you are wasting time doing something else that's has nothing to do with your vision or goals for your life. So it's one of those books that I will read over and over and over, because a reminder, like, you do your one thing list, and if you know what your one thing is, and yes, you may be doing other things at the time just because maybe you do need this job to pay bills right now, but you still have to carve out that time for your one thing to make sure that you're still doing the things to get closer to your one thing goal.
Fabulous. And I will just say to you, I would have been one of those women in your target market, because I did that work myself, hence why I'm where I am. So I totally understand. It is that point where you suddenly think, is this it? Is this what it's going to be for the rest of my life? I'm at this age, and do I want to be doing this at the next stage? Oh, something's got to change. Something's got to give. And it's great that you can guide them. Down that path, because it was exactly the same thing I do.
I think COVID has forced a lot of us to think about that.
Yes, and
not by choice either.
Yeah, definitely. So Naomi, we've had some really long answers, which is great, some really depth answers. But this question here is: if you had to start over from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
Okay, so I'm going to give two answers for that.
Okay.
One, my favorite quote in the world is "The journey is the reward," because I believe that every single thing that we've done, the good things, the bad things, everything makes us who we are today. I wouldn't be the PR chick without everything that happened to me, going to hospitality school, then working at RETV, then going into corporate communications, then being a publicist. I needed all of those things to get to this stage. Right. However, maybe I wouldn't have gone to university if I were to change something from that journey. I would have just explored my passions. I would have just really explored the things that I really, really liked. And what I remember at that age, what I did like, I always told people this, that if I didn't get into hotel and tourism management school, I may have been a literature teacher.
Right.
I love to read. And my passion for literature happened in high school. Okay. Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, like I love all of that kind of stuff. And so to this day, I'm a big reader. My son's a reader. I got him reading really, really early. And so, maybe I would not have gone to university, and I would have used those 4 years to explore things that I really, really like to do.
Yeah, it's a challenging thing, I think, because knowing how I know Caribbean parents and stuff like that, it possibly wasn't an option back then, because that was what they kind of directed our path as opposed to us guiding ourselves.
Right. And I think my mom also doesn't have a degree. So, she was just very excited at the fact that, she has her kids now and they're going to finish and do their degree and stuff. Yeah. Sorry, Mom.
She's very proud. I'm very proud of you.
So what I'm doing I'm doing this with my son. So my son is a creative. He's very passionate about animals. So he knew from birth, when he was 2, he could name every dinosaur.
Right.
And so that's actually how I started getting him reading, because I started just buying him books that he would like and then slowly adding words and stuff. But he's also, as much as he is super knowledgeable about animals and he thinks he wants to be a zoologist, he actually says he wants to be a herpetologist, which specializes in lizards and reptiles and amphibians.
Right. Okay.
He's also a builder. So he's always loved Legos.
Right.
And so from as early as 3 or 4, he's been building things and he loves to build and recreate. And now he's also writing a book.
Okay.
He's 14 and he is writing his own fantasy novel series that I'm trying to help to edit for him. And so he has lots of passions and I let him explore every single one of them. So that he can figure out what does he really like. And maybe he wants to do something with all 3 and that's fine.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference with, and what I've learned from my experience, that I want him to try these things, you know? So like, we actually have a meeting here with the curator for our zoo in Jamaica, where he's going to get to volunteer with him this summer.
Okay.
So he gets, and because he's from South Africa and he's also a herpetologist, Ajani, that's my son, will get the opportunity to see if this is something he really likes, because now he'll have hand-on experience. And maybe he may come out of it saying he doesn't like it, but I know that won't happen because he loves that. But yeah, so I'm allowing him the opportunity to explore what he loves.
Which is great. So you have your teenage son, which leads quite nice into my next question is, what advice would you give to your teenage self?
Oh my gosh, to my teenage self, the same thing that I'm telling people right now about COVID. One day at a time. There's no need to rush. Do what you love. Do what you love. There's no need to rush and take it one day. Appreciate the journey. I remember as a teenager, I always wanted to rush into everything. I wanted to have my first kiss. I wanted to go to all the parties. I wanted to do everything because my friends were doing everything. And one thing I definitely appreciate about my mother was that she was very resilient with that. And she was just like, you have time. You don't need to do all these things yet. And it was true. When the time came, it was my time. Excellent. You know, even though a lot of my friends were doing different things and more of the fun stuff, like way before me, it wasn't my time. And I appreciate that she slowed me down in that space. And so, you know, I can appreciate it as an adult now. And so that's what I would tell myself, like, you know, there's no rush. Adulting is not fun. Enjoy the youthfulness, enjoy the childhood, enjoy the young teenage years, have fun, explore, be adventurous, and
lovely. So we're coming down to our last few questions now, Naomi. So what are the 3 things you've learned about yourself during your career?
Okay, so I always thought that I was not a creative. You heard me say I'm creative maybe 3 times so far. It's a new discovery for me because I come from a very creative family. My father's an artist. My grandmother was an artist. My brother is a designer, creative director. So I grew up in that space. My dad actually did all the album covers for Bob Marley.
Oh, wow.
So yes, so I grew up in a household of artists.
Yeah.
And I just never thought that I was creative because I couldn't draw. But I realized that my craft is in words and expression.
Right.
And so, and my mind. So I love to, I love ideation. So that's a new thing for me as well. So 1, I realized that I actually am a creative. 2, I love that I am passionate about people. And helping them to, as I said, find that greatness. That gives me life and that gives me fulfillment. And then the 3rd thing is that I am an ideator. As I said, like I get carried away with envisioning things, either for myself, which can be a bad thing sometimes, but also for people. To the point where like an agency actually said to me, could I create a rate just to do ideation, just to come in and sit with them, hear what they're thinking and just share my ideas. And I love doing that. That's when I get excited. I actually don't get excited about doing the work.
Right.
So maybe that could also be a new thing if I, you know, move from my agency to just like pay me to come and sit for a couple hours and tell you what I think you should be doing, but I don't want to do it for you. I just want to tell you, and you guys execute. So because I get really excited. So for me, when we get a project for my agency, Garrick Communications, I'm the most excited when it's something that I know is aligned with our values and beliefs and things that we like to do. And we'll spend all this time brainstorming, and we're like, okay, but we have to actually do the work now.
Yeah.
We need to execute.
And I love you talked about the creativity, because like yourself, I always thought I wasn't creative. I've been in the corporate world for so long, etc., etc. But then I also realized creativity takes different forms, because for me, my creativity comes in solutions. So I will look at something where people think it's hopeless, and the outcome, the method I get to get the outcome may not be pretty, but it's a solution. So my creativity for me is my, don't want to say out of my box thinking, but I see ways out or ways to do something different. My MacGyver mindset is what I call it. Is I always know this.
I love that MacGyver mindset. I hope you have that on your LinkedIn page. Do you have that on your LinkedIn page?
I don't, because I think
you need to figure out a way to include that in your bio.
But it is my way of thinking, you know. And I think actually someone's written a book on that. And the actual guy.
And you see, like what you just said.
Yeah.
That's my way of thinking. I hear people say things and I'm like, that's your brand. How do we now put this together to package it so that other people immediately see that about you?
Yeah,
I love MacGyver mindset.
MacGyver mindset.
Because if you know MacGyver, then someone can clearly understand exactly what you do. Definitely. You get out of tight situations. You find the end thing.
Yes.
I love that.
I have to put that on my list of things to do.
You have to, even if it's on your Instagram profile.
Yeah, definitely. It's on my list for today. On my list today. So Naomi, where would we find
a MacGyver mindset for problem solving?
There you go. So I have to put something in there regarding women and leadership. I have to think on that, because that will be my thing. But I'll come back to that.
I love it. I'll think about it too.
I digress. So we know where you'll be on a Friday morning at 6 with your cinnamon buns. But where would we find you on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m.?
If I don't have a webinar or meeting, now that the world is opening back a little bit, on a Saturday morning at 10, I could be in one of 3 places.
Okay.
I could be in my bed.
Right.
Watching something. Could it be something that I've watched a million times, because I'm that person as well. If I like a movie, I'll watch it 100 times. With my coffee, my Saturday morning coffee, that's Blue Mountain coffee with, so Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee.
Yeah.
With, I will put nutmeg and cinnamon and a little bit of coconut rum cream.
Okay.
That's my Saturday. That's my weekend coffee.
Your guilty secret.
Yes, that's the weekend coffee. Or 2, I'd be on a beach somewhere, because I love. For me, even if I don't get to swim, just actually the sound, seeing the ocean, and being able to put my feet in the sand does something for my mind.
Right.
It almost like gives me a reset.
Okay.
So I actually spent this last weekend with my mother and my son in the grill on their beautiful 7-mile white sand beach. And it was amazing just to be in the water. Yeah. So that's 2. So definitely a beach. Or 3, I started playing polo.
Okay.
Yes, I started playing polo in February. And so my gym that I go to, the guy that owns it is from London, and he used to play polo when he was in the army. And so when he came to Jamaica, he started doing a polo for charity tournament where you'd have the professional polos from the polo club, but he would also give, Spry is the name of the gym. He'd give Spry participants, he would ask like 6 of us if we wanted to learn to play polo in 6 weeks, so we could play a small match together with other amateurs. And so this year I said, I want to try it. And so we were supposed to have our tournament in April, but of course, COVID happened in the middle of March.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the sport so much, and it seems as if I have a natural ability towards the sport, that I've continued playing. So I play 3 times a week, and I'm just amazed that at 40, I've never had a sport, I've never had a hobby other than reading.
Yeah.
And now this is my thing. I go and play polo.
So let me just check here. Let me just check which polo. Water polo or polo on the back of a horse?
Polo on the back of the horse with the mallet,
More
and you're
power
hitting
to
the
you.
ball, and you're hanging off on the side.
Nope. More power to you. I was stuck in my cycling. Thank you very much. I'm in control of my 2 wheels as much as I can be, as opposed to 4 legs. So thank you. More power to you.
Yeah, it's like the baking. I would never, I mean, if you told me I'd be playing polo ever, I'd be like, are you crazy? But I really, really love it. I love it. So I have my boots and I have my helmet, and I love it. And of course, it's a pink helmet.
Yes. I can visualize it. I can visualize it. So
yes, I love it. So, don't be afraid to try new things. You're never too old to do something new.
Absolutely. So Naomi,
and find out that you actually love it.
True that. So last interview question. What does success feel like to you?
Success feels like waking up and not having to worry. Okay. That's what success feels like to me. Okay. If I can wake up on a morning, and it doesn't necessarily mean financially successful, it could be just I got through the day.
Yes.
So for me, if I can wake up in the morning and not worry that, and it could just be one morning, and not worry about bills or about life or about health or about anything, that's success for me.
Excellent. Love that answer. Absolutely love that answer. Yeah. So that was my last official interview question. But Naomi, if people like to connect with you or get in touch, how can they do that?
Sure. So you can follow me on Instagram at the PR Chick or Naomi Garrick, or you can visit my website, which is iamnaomigarrick.com, or you can follow me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, and you just search for Naomi Garrick.
Fantastic. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you so much for being my guest this afternoon. It was fabulous talking with you.
It was a pleasure for me. It was great.